Ever feel like the old playbook on like startups and innovation is, I don't know, maybe a little outdated?
Yeah, feels like it's stuck in the last century sometimes.
Totally. And that's why we're diving into Zero to One by Peter Thiel today. This book throws out that old playbook and kind of like lights it on fire.
Yeah, yeah, not exactly subtle, is he?
No, not at all. Okay, so Thiel really goes after this whole idea that competition is king, which, let's be honest, we hear everywhere, right? Like it's what we're taught from day
Oh
one.
yeah, competition is the backbone of a healthy economy, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
But Thiel says, hold on a second, what if it's actually holding us back?
It's a really interesting point. Like we're so busy trying to beat the competition that we forget to ask if we're even playing the right game. So instead of competing in a market that's already crowded, Deal says we should focus on creating entirely new markets. He calls this going from zero to one.
That's where things get really interesting, right? Because he ties this whole 0 to 1 concept to this idea of creative monopolies.
Okay, so I unpack that for me. Because when most people hear monopoly, they think uh, evil corporations.
Right, it's like the ultimate four-letter word in business. But Thiel says, hold on, not all monopolies are created equal. He makes this distinction between monopolies that come about through, I don't know, maybe shady business practices or just being in the right place at the right time.
Versus monopolies that are built on being truly innovative, on creating something so new and valuable that it completely changes the game.
Exactly. He calls those creative monopolies, and he actually argues that they're good for society.
Okay, I gotta admit, that's a little hard to wrap my head around. So how does he justify that?
Well, he argues that when you have a creative monopoly, when you know that a groundbreaking idea could mean like dominating a market for years, maybe even decades, it changes your whole perspective. You're much more likely to take risks, to like invest heavily in long-term research to really push those boundaries.
Because the potential payoff is so much greater.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
instead of just trying to get a bigger slice of the pie, you're focused on baking a whole new pie that's like 10 times bigger and tastier than anything anyone's ever seen before.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And Thiel argues that those big, those game-changing innovations, those benefit everyone, not just the company that made them. Think about like the iPhone, right?
Totally changed how we communicate, how we consume information, how we live our lives. And yeah, Apple's made a fortune, but it's also created countless opportunities for other businesses, app developers, accessory makers. The whole ecosystem just exploded.
Right. And that's what he's getting at. These creative monopolies, they push the boundaries of what's possible, and those advancements end up benefiting everyone in the long run.
Okay, so Thiel argues that creative monopolies are good because they encourage these huge leaps forward. But don't they also stifle competition? And isn't competition supposed to be, the engine of innovation?
That's the traditional thinking, for sure. And it's not entirely wrong. But Thiel argues that competition can also be incredibly limiting. Like, if you're constantly looking over your shoulder, worried about what your rivals are doing, you're not going to be as willing to take risks, to try something truly groundbreaking.
It's like you're so busy fighting over scraps that you miss the opportunity to go hunt for a feast.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's break down how Thiel actually sees competition playing out in the real world. He starts by talking about these two types of progress, horizontal and vertical.
Right, so imagine two paths, right? One is about copying what's already working, just doing it, I don't know, maybe a little bit better or cheaper. Like opening another burger joint in a city that already has like a burger joint on every corner. That's horizontal progress.
Okay, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. Someone's going to make the burgers.
Exactly. But it's not exactly pushing the boundaries of human innovation.
Right. And it's often driven by this fear of missing out, right? Like, if everyone else is opening burger joints, I better get in on the action.
Even if it means, fighting tooth and nail for every customer.
Exactly. Now, the other path, vertical progress, that's about creating something totally new. Instead of another burger joint, it's like inventing a way to grow meat in a lab that's like tastier and more sustainable than anything we've ever had before.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Sign me up for that lab-grown burger. But I see your point. One path is about copying, the other is about creating something totally new. And Teal is all about that second path, that 0 to 1 leap.
Right. He argues that we're so focused on that horizontal progress, on competing in these existing markets, that we've lost sight of what's truly possible. He actually uses China as an example. They've become incredibly good at copying existing models, but they haven't really made those big, groundbreaking innovations.
Which, I know, makes you wonder what would happen if that same energy, that same drive was directed towards solving some of the world's biggest problems.
Imagine if instead of just trying to build the next iPhone, we were focused on, like, curing cancer or developing clean energy sources that could power the entire planet.
Yeah, those are the kinds of innovations that could really change the world.
And that's what Thiel is getting at. He's not just interested in building successful companies, he's interested in building companies that can actually make the world a better place.
Companies that are the best for the world, not just the best in the world.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to this whole idea of the creative monopoly. If you can create something truly new and valuable, you're not just competing anymore, you're creating your own category.
You're playing a different game altogether.
And that's where the real power lies.
Exactly. And that power, that's what allows you to actually make a real impact. Not just like a blip on the radar, but a lasting change. Thiel is really big on this idea of building companies that are built to last. He calls it durability.
Durability, okay. So like we're not just talking about building a product that doesn't break, right? We're talking about building a company that can withstand the test of time.
Exactly. It's about understanding those underlying forces that shape industries,
Mm.
and being able to adapt as things change, because the one constant is that things will change. Think of it like, I don't know, building a house,
Right.
right? You don't just want to focus on the furniture inside. You need a strong foundation that can weather any storm.
So how do you build that kind of foundation for a company? What does Thiel say about creating that lasting value?
He's got a lot to say about it, but one of the key things he emphasizes is this: don't be afraid to be different. In fact, he kind of sees it as a requirement for building a truly great company.
It's funny because we often hear the opposite, right? Like, fit in, follow the rules, don't rock the boat. But Thiel's saying, yeah, screw that, rock the boat, sink the damn thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He actually talks about how a lot of successful founders, they share this kind of outsider mentality. They're the ones who are like questioning things everyone else just accepted as like gospel. They're the ones who weren't afraid to go against the grain.
Which makes me think about all those stories of like entrepreneurs who were told their ideas were crazy, that they'd never work, and then bam, they turn those crazy ideas into billion-dollar businesses.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like think about Airbnb, right? Who would have thought that people would be open to like staying in strangers' homes? But they tapped into this fundamental shift in how we think about travel, about community, and they completely disrupted an entire industry.
Okay, so being different, being willing to challenge the status quo, that's important.
Yeah.
But it's got to be more than just being different for the sake of being different, right? There has to be some substance there, some real value that you're creating.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where this whole secrets thing comes in. Thiel believes that every truly great company, they're built on a secret, some truth about the world that most people either haven't figured out yet or just refuse to believe. And these secrets, they can be about anything. It could be about technology, about human behavior, about how markets work, anything.
So it's about seeing the world differently, right? Like noticing those things that other people miss or just dismiss as like not important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's about having the courage to act on those insights, to
Right.
build something based on them, even if everyone else thinks you're, a little bit crazy. He actually talks about how finding a secret is almost like joining a conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's this idea that you've stumbled upon something powerful, something that could change the world, and you need to find the right people to help you bring it to life.
Okay, that's a little bit intense, but I get it. It's like you're in on something special, something that most people don't understand. And that shared belief, that shared sense of mission, that's what fuels the whole thing. It's like the early days of Google, right? They were just a couple of guys in a garage with this crazy idea about organizing all the information on the internet.
And everyone thought they were nuts. And seriously, who needs another search engine, right? But they were convinced they were onto something big, and they were willing to put in the work, the time, the energy to make it happen.
And they ended up changing the world.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these secrets, this idea of building companies that are built to last, that challenge the status quo, that are based on something truly valuable. But how does this all fit into the bigger picture? Like, what kind of future is Thiel ultimately envisioning? What's the end game here?
So he's not naive, right? He knows that the future isn't some like preordained utopia. He actually outlines 4 different scenarios, ranging from like total collapse to this incredible technological takeoff. And he makes it very clear that the future we end up with, it's not predetermined. It's a choice. It's a choice that we make every single day with the decisions that we make, the actions that we take.
So it's not about predicting the future, it's about creating it.
Exactly.
And what role does technology play in all of this?
Thiel sees technology as this incredibly powerful tool. Like, it has the potential to solve some of our biggest problems, to create incredible abundance, to fundamentally change what it means to be human.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, he's also very aware of the dangers of technology if it's not used wisely, if it's not guided by the right values.
So it's not about just building cool gadgets, it's about thinking about the kind of world we want to create and then using technology to help us get there.
Exactly. And that's why he emphasizes the importance of having the right people at the helm. People with a strong sense of ethics, a deep understanding of human nature, and a willingness to think long term.
Because the decisions we make today about technology, about innovation, about how we build companies and structure our society, those decisions are going to have ripple effects for generations to come.
Exactly. And that's a lot of responsibility, right?
No kidding. So when Thiel talks about the future, he often uses this phrase, indefinite optimism versus definite optimism. What's the difference?
Right. So indefinite optimism, it's kind of like things are generally getting better, so I'm sure the future will be fine.
Mhm.
It's that kind of passive hope that things will just work out. But definite optimism, that's different. That's about saying, okay, the future is uncertain, but I believe that we have the power to shape it. I believe that through our actions, through our choices, we can create a future that's not just good, but great.
So it's about taking ownership of the future, not just waiting to see what happens.
Exactly.
And how do we cultivate that kind of definite optimism? Where does it come from?
Well, I think it starts with believing in something bigger than yourself. Whether it's your company, your community, your family, whatever it is, having that sense of purpose, that sense of mission, that's what gives you the energy, the motivation, the resilience to keep going, even when things get tough. And trust me, they will get tough. But it's also about surrounding yourself with the right people, building a team, a community, a support system of people who share your values, who believe in what you're doing, who are going to be there to pick you up when you fall and celebrate with you when you succeed.
It's like that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Ex-
And that's really what Thiel is getting at with this whole 0 to 1 thing, right? It's about having the courage to dream big, to take risks, to build something new and valuable, and to do it with other people who share your passion, your vision, your belief in a better future.
And that's what's so exciting about this whole thing, right? It's
Oh, yeah.
we're not just talking about spreadsheets and bottom lines here. We're talking about building a better future. It's about using our creativity, our ingenuity, our sheer willpower to create something new and amazing and hopeful.
It's inspiring, honestly. Like, it makes you want to go out there and, I don't know, start a company or invent something or just, do something meaningful with your life.
Totally. And that's what Thiel is trying to do with this book, right? He wants to shake us out of our complacency, to get us thinking bigger, bolder, more ambitiously about what's truly possible.
He wants us to stop being so afraid of failure, to stop settling for the status quo, and to start building those companies that are not just valuable, but actually make the world a better place.
Exactly. He's basically saying, look, the future is unwritten, so let's go write it.
On that note, I think we've done our part to unpack 0 to 1. For now, at least.
Yeah, for now. But this is the kind of book you come back to again and again. Every time you read it, you discover something new.
Absolutely. So much to think about, so much to discuss, and hopefully our listeners are feeling just as inspired as we are.
Inspired to go out there and build the future.
Exactly. Thanks for diving into 0 to 1 with us. Until next time.